Wonderful. Thank you, Sarah. So from here, we move into 1990. We have the creation of the combination of the Registry of Interpreters for the Deaf and the National Association of the Deaf Task Force, which focused on developing new written and performance tests. And this was important because people in the past who had taken the test were giving the content and the answers to future generations of people who were going to take the test, and those who were caught doing that were actually sued by both the RID and the NAD. 26 different sites were established to conduct certification testing, which is kind of a foreshadowing into the future of the shortage that we're going to see. They kind of saw that there was going to be, they needed more of a national level. And then the Northwestern Community College developed the first National Interpreter Education Project, which was to prepare students for educational and rehabilitation work, which actually set ground for a lot of the programs, and just like the one that we are in today. Over in 1991, President Bush signed in the Americans with Disabilities Act, which we all know very well today as the ADA. Specifies specifically that any event of a minimum size must provide interpreters for deaf or hard of hearing employees. The Office of Special Education and Rehabilitation Services provided 10 grants to establish interpreter training programs, just like the one that had been just, built and developed in Northwestern Community College. And the RID convention establishes that a bachelor's degree should be required. At least this idea was at least proposed then, and then later certified and agreed upon. In 92 and 93, the Joint Task Force also starts to focus on oral interpreting certification at the convention, which was held that year in Florida. And then the Registry of Interpreter for the Deaf started a grievance process and of course finalized it, which allowed the receiving individuals of the interpreting services to provide official feedback and essentially complaints to the organization. This leads later to people needing to recertify, and we'll get into that later. In 93, the president of the National Association for the Deaf invited the Registry of Interpreters for the Deaf to be a part of the NAD Board of Directors, which was really great to kind of combine all of these together to make sure that it's all one voice that's consistent. And this is what led to a joint certification test and the creation of the certification on a national level. Afterwards, the American Board of Education took count of 20,000 plus deaf people in post-secondary education with no specialized deaf or hard of hearing program, which is just a huge success for the, is just what's showing what the interpreters are able to provide, or that kind of pathway that they're able to open up into mainstream education. And then in 94 and 95, both, like I mentioned earlier, they noticed that there was a huge shortage and it was kind of a crisis on a national level. They actually defined what they were short on, and just to say, hey, here's exactly what we need. And these bullet points are here below. Interpreters in 1995 at the convention were also appointed as cultural allies. So instead of just being robots and saying, hey, here's the words, that's it, really trying to advocate for the members of the deaf and hard of hearing community to make sure that they're well advocated for. And then that year, the National Convention broke attendance records and set professional standards for team interpreting, multiple roles, business practices, mentoring, and really set standards for the use of a certified deaf interpreter. Here's a timeline kind of bringing together and summarizing all of the things that we talked about from our presentation of 1980 to 1995. And with that, that is our time. Stop sharing. It's harder than it looks. Thanks, y'all.